Hello 171 class. This is a homework example from your 1.2 homework. So in this homework set, one of your questions, this is about function notation, being able to understand function notation, and this is in a table form. So what we're doing here is understanding inputs and outputs. Okay, remember, notation f of x, x is the input. These are x's. So what this means here, -4 right here. -4 is going into there. X is being replaced with -4. And then we get a 1 here. So that means f of -4 equals 1. Alright, and then if -4 goes into the g function, replacing that x, we get 7. So that means g of -4 equals 7. So this is the list of inputs, and this is the outputs for the first function, outputs for the second function. Alright, so let's make sense of what's going on here. F of -3. So what we do here is we find -3. Here it is. And then we find f of -3. So here's the f, here's -3. This is f of -3. So I'm going to replace f of -3 with what it says it's equal to. It's equal to 1. Okay, and then I'm going to replace f of -2. There's -2. There's f of -2. I'm going to replace that, f of -2, with -8. Okay, now switching to g of 0. There's 0. Go all the way over to here for the g column. This is g of 0. So g of 0 right here is going to be replaced with -1. Alright, and then that means this right here also gets replaced with -1. Okay, that's another g of 0. So I'm going to put a parentheses -1 there as well. Okay, now f of -4, there's -4. Right beside it under f, that's 1. So I'm going to replace f of -4 with 1. Okay, there's -1. This is times right here. G of -3, there's -3. Go all the way over here to get g of -3. So that's a 9. So I'm going to replace g of -3 with what it's equal to, which is just a number 9. Alright, now we have an order of operations problem. We need to do all this stuff under the radical. So this becomes the square root of 1 minus -8 is 1 plus 8, which is 9. Minus -1 squared is +1, so I'll just put a 1 there, plus 1, I'll just do the rest of these in order, divided by -1 times 9, okay? So I kind of combined two steps together. I did the stuff under this radical and I did the exponent step. It's okay because they're separated by subtraction, but technically you would do one step at a time. Alright, the square root of 9 is 3. So I got 3 minus 1 plus 1 divided by -1 times 9. Remember, in the order of operations, we don't just work left to right. We have to do the operations in a specific order. So division and multiplication are our next operation. So I'm going to divide 1 divided by -1. So that's 3 minus 1 plus 1 divided by -1 is -1 times 9. Okay, now in the order of operations, multiplication comes before subtraction or addition. So I need to do this next. So I get 3 minus 1 plus -1 times 9 is -9. And then finally, I just add, subtract left to right. So 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 plus negative 9 is negative 7 is our answer. Alright, and then if we type in negative 7, let's see that that works. Alright, now when you got to here, if you're comfortable with your calculator at that point, you could have just typed it all into your calculator. Your calculator can handle all those operations and do it correctly. So I would take the square root of 1 minus, you don't need parentheses, negative 8, close that parentheses, there's this part, minus, we do need a parentheses here, negative 1 squared, so parentheses negative 1 squared, plus 1 divided by negative 1, don't need a parentheses there. Alright, and then times 9. Alright, and then hit enter, and there's our negative 7 also. So you can type it in directly into your calculator. Now, a couple of times I said I don't need a parentheses, I do need a parentheses. If you went back and stuck in parentheses in all those places where I said we don't need one, like I said we don't need one there, and then I said we don't need one here, it still wouldn't matter. It would still give us negative 7. If you don't need it for the calculator to understand what to do, it doesn't mean that visually it doesn't have to be there. You can put it in there and it'll still work. Okay, but just know that the calculator can do order of operations. Once you realize, once you've figured out the function notation, what these numbers actually are, then your calculator can handle it. So you can go ahead and stick it straight into your calculator, or you can clean it up a little bit and make it a little something nicer to go into your calculator like this. Like 3 minus 1 plus 1 divided by negative 1 times 9. Alright, you can kind of clean up the stuff a little bit and then have, go into your calculator there.